Imagine finding, well, almost a Rosetta Stone, but for another species.
Yeah.
Researchers are basically starting to build one for bonobos,
Yeah.
our closest living relatives.
Oh, okay. I saw the material you sent over.
And what they're decoding about how bonobos talk, it's really shaking up our whole understanding of how human language even started.
Absolutely. This new research, it's out of the University of Zurich and Harvard, reported in Science Tech Daily. It really forces you to look again at what bonobos can do, linguistically speaking.
Right.
And for our listeners, especially those really digging into these topics, maybe for exams, this gives such a crucial perspective on the really deep roots of language.
So our mission for this deep dive is to get right to the heart of what they found.
Exactly. And why it's making us rethink some pretty fundamental ideas about human communication.
Okay, so to really get this, we need to properly introduce the stars. The bonobos themselves. Now, maybe not everyone listening is, deep into primate behavior, but it's so important to know bonobos are special. Genetically, they're our closest living kin.
Precisely. We share a huge amount of our DNA with them. And this study specifically, it was done out in the wild.
Oh, right. Not in a lab.
No, observing bonobos in the Kokolapori Community Reserve. That's in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Okay.
And that's a really significant point, actually, because it means we're seeing how they naturally communicate, without the weirdness of being in captivity.
And the researchers weren't just, casually listening in, were they? The article mentions they used innovative methods adapted from linguistics.
Ah, yeah.
That sounds pretty sophisticated. What exactly does that mean here?
So this is where it gets really interesting. They borrowed techniques, actual methods from how we study human language.
Okay.
And applied them really systematically to analyze bonobo sounds. Think of it like this. Instead of just, oh, that's a squeak, they were looking for patterns.
Patterns like
how often specific calls happened in certain situations. How did other bonobos react? It let them be much more rigorous, quantifiable about figuring out the meaning.
So almost like grammar.
In a way, yeah. Analyzing sequences, seeing how calls relate to social stuff, kind of dissecting the structure of their conversations.
There was this one term that jumped out from the material, compositionality. It sounds a bit technical. Can you break that down for us?
Sure, yeah. At its heart, compositionality is just the ability to make complex meanings by combining smaller, meaningful bits.
Like words.
Exactly, like building with words. Single words mean something. Put them together in a sentence and the whole sentence gets a new meaning, right? Derived from the words and how they're arranged.
The article had a couple of examples. It said blonde dancer was trivial compositionality. What makes that trivial?
Right, so blonde means something on its own. Dancer means something on its own. Put them together, blonde dancer just means, well, someone who's blonde and dances. It's additive. Blonde doesn't really change the core meaning of dancer there.
Okay, just adding two facts. But then it compared that to bad dancer. That's non-trivial. What's the difference?
Exactly the key point. With bad dancer, bad isn't just a separate fact added on.
No.
No, bad directly modifies dancer. It changes the meaning of dancer itself. It's not a bad thing that also happens to dance. It's about the quality of the dancing.
I see. One part influences the other?
Precisely. That modification makes it non-trivial. And here's the kicker. The researchers found bonobo communication uses compositionality extensively, including these more complex, non-trivial kinds.
Wow. That's way beyond just having different calls for food or danger.
Oh, absolutely.
The article even mentioned the researchers creating a bonobo dictionary of sorts. I mean, that sounds huge. How'd they even start that?
That was really foundational. They used a linguistic method to systematically figure out the likely meaning behind each type of bonobo call.
Just listening a lot?
Well, yes, but very meticulously. Observing for ages, noting the exact social situation, what the bonobo did before, during, after the call, and crucially, how others responded.
Okay.
Correlating all that let them build this picture of what each sound likely meant in their social world.
And this led to what one researcher, Melissa Berthet, called a complete list of bonobo calls and their meaning. And it's the first time for any animal's whole vocal repertoire.
That's right. It's a landmark achievement. It gives us the basic units, the words, if you like. And there's a concrete example they gave. Apparently, a bonobo emits a subtle peep before the whistle to denote tensed social situations.
A peep.
Yeah, just a little peep. But it's not random noise. It carries specific meaning, modifying the whistle that follows it, signaling the emotional context.
So even tiny sounds matter.
Exactly. It shows how subtle elements build the overall message.
Okay, they have this basic dictionary of single calls. How did they then look at combinations? Did bonobos string these calls together?
That was the next logical step, yeah. Were they just using calls alone or combining them meaningfully? They used more analytical tools to see how single call meanings related to the meanings of sequences.
Right.
Simon Townsend put it well. With our approach, we were able to quantify how the meaning of bonobo single calls and call combinations relate to each other.
Quantify, so measure the meaning somehow.
Essentially, yeah. To see if a combined call just meant call A plus call B, or if something more complex was happening. You know, like our bad dancer example, where the combination creates something new.
And the big finding was
Yeah.
they did find combinations related to the parts.
Yes, lots of them. Showing compositionality was definitely there. But even more striking, some combinations look remarkably like those non-trivial structures we have in human language.
That's a huge connection to make.
It really is. And Melissa Berthay's quote here is key. This suggests that the capacity to combine call types in complex ways is not as unique to humans as we once thought.
So not just adding sounds, but modifying meaning.
That's the implication. Finding evidence of one call changing the meaning of another, mirroring structures in our own phrases. It's a real aha moment. Suggests a level of sophistication we just hadn't given them credit for.
Which, naturally, brings us to the really big question.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for language evolution? We share an ancestor with bonobos, right? A common one.
We do. As Martin Serbeck points out in the material, the split happened roughly 7 to 13 million years ago.
That's quite a while ago, but maybe not in deep evolutionary time.
Relatively speaking, yeah. And given that divergence time, you'd expect us to share some traits we inherited.
Okay.
And this study strongly suggests that this ability, this compositional communication, is probably one of those shared inherited traits.
So if bonobos can do this, does that push back the date for when this kind of complex communication started?
Yeah.
Way before humans.
That's the really significant implication, yes. Simon Townsend states it clearly. Their research suggests that our ancestors already extensively used compositionality at least 7 million years ago, if not more.
7 million years.
It's a remarkable thought. It means the basic tools for complex, structured communication were likely around long before what we think of as human language fully emerged.
It makes you wonder what was driving it back then.
Exactly. Were their social lives getting more complex? Did the environment demand more nuanced communication? It opens up fascinating questions.
So summing up the impact, the ability to build complex meaning from smaller bits isn't just a human trick.
Doesn't look like it.
It seems to have much deeper evolutionary roots, possibly going back millions of years before Homo sapiens.
That's the takeaway. The evidence points to bonobo communication having much more in common, fundamentally, with human language than we realized. It's not just about having sounds, but about the sophisticated structure they use to combine them.
It really opens up new avenues, doesn't it, for research into cognition, communication, in us and our relatives.
Definitely.
So for you, listening in, maybe especially if you're prepping for exams like the UPSC, where connecting dots across anthropology, science, even ethics is key. The big takeaway here is that this research really challenges that old idea of complex, structured communication being uniquely human.
Right. It shakes that foundation a bit.
This idea of a bonobo dictionary, the evidence for compositional meaning, it gives us a totally new way to look at language evolution. Suggests the building blocks are ancient. Maybe going right back to that last common ancestor we shared with bonobos.
It provides really valuable context for understanding that deep history, yeah.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If we diverged millions of years ago, what other fundamental cognitive abilities might we share with primates that we're only just, starting to uncover?
It certainly underscores that some core mechanisms might be much older than we thought, and raises questions about why they evolved back then.
Absolutely. Well, if you found this deep dive valuable and want to explore more topics like this, please do like and subscribe.
Yeah, let us know.
And definitely let us know in the comments if you have more questions or specific areas you'd like us to tackle in the future. Today's discussion was based on reporting from Science Tech Daily.